The government recently announced that on August 29th there is going to be a national referendum where Icelanders will be able to decide whether or not we should continue EU negotiations, even though we suspended the negotiations more than 10 years ago because they weren't going anywhere. So this is it, right? We are actually heading for the European Union, right? Well, let me put it this way. You see those horses that are running away? These are your horses. You need to hold them. You need to hold your horses.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
In this video, I am going to explain to you my humble opinion on why I think it is very unlikely that Iceland will ever become a European Union member state. There are a few hurdles. Hurdles. Shit, this one is difficult. So there are several hurdles in the way for Iceland to actually join the EU. And the first hurdle is the fact that, well, this is very much the project of the current Pro E.U. government. And even though the referendum is only 5 months away, that's still a long enough time for the government to not make it. You see, this is a three-party coalition government, and, well, historically speaking, only one single three-party coalition has ever managed a full 4-year term. The others have all eventually collapsed for one reason or another, because the parties simply couldn't agree on something or some scandal broke out. Now, I'm not saying that this is super likely to happen within the next 5 months, but it could upset the whole project. Because also the likelihood of the next government also being pro-EU, very unlikely, because pro-EU governments just are the absolute abnormality. I mean, this is basically number 2 thus far. Hurdle number 2 is, of course, the referendum itself. It is very well plausible that a majority will just reject continuing the negotiations, and, well, that'll be it then. Polls are very inconclusive on this. It's probably gonna be neck to neck. Then there is hurdle number 3. The negotiations themselves, they might very much end up like the last time, meaning they may just never end or be incredibly unsuccessful or just sort of fiddle out. Also keep in mind that the negotiations are gonna take some time, and then in the meantime there's gonna be a new election, and again, statistically speaking, a new anti-EU government is gonna take power, and it's gonna be in power while the negotiations are going on, and it could easily torpedo them in some manner. So yeah, I guess you could count the most likely scenario of an upcoming anti-EU government as hurdle number 4. It's 4, right? 1, 2, 3, whatever. Anyway, let's say that everything has gone smoothly, the negotiations are over, we are ready to join the EU, and there might even be another pro-EU government in power, or let's say, or maybe even this one. Maybe Kristrún Frostadóttir is just such a competent leader and she actually manages to take down inflation somehow, eventually, but whatever. And yes, he's just so popular and everything just works out, and Viðreisn also hangs in there, and yeah, all of that, everything works out great, basically. Now, let us imagine for a moment that we are currently living inside Kristrún Frostadóttir's own fantasy world, and everything has gone smoothly. The EU accession negotiations are now over and done with. We are ready to join the EU. The EU wants Iceland to join. Then there is most likely going to be another national referendum, and the people are gonna be asked whether or not they think Iceland should be a part of the European Union, yes or no. Very likely, or at least somewhat likely, that it might get rejected, and we have done this whole thing for nothing. And also now the question has been answered quite conclusively for at least a long time. I don't think this question would be brought up anytime again after that, and the majority decides to not join the European Union. And again, polls are vague on this. It could be neck and neck. I really doubt that the Pro E.U. side would win this one. I'll get into reasons why I don't think so in a moment. And then finally, the absolute last hurdle, the final boss, the European Union itself. Currently, apparently, the Union is in an expansionist mood, wanting to let Ukraine join as soon as the war is over. And what was the other one? Montenegro, I think, maybe Georgia. But at the same time, this is a new phenomenon that didn't exist prior to the Ukraine war. So we don't know if this situation is going to hold, that the Union is going to remain in an expansionist mood for this long. It could or could not. There's just no way of knowing. Also consider that, Iceland gets an easy pass and Iceland joins the European Union. What is the European Union then going to say to all the countries that have wanted to join for a while and haven't been able to, and are now just sort of thinking, whoa, what? We matter so much less than Iceland? What? And I'm not convinced that the European Union would like to sabotage its diplomatic relations with countries such as Georgia, Turkey, and whatever else. So that's something to consider, definitely. I think it is quite possible that the European Union is just sort of posturing that it wants Iceland to join, but doesn't actually. Especially not if this happens during what is statistically likely to be a anti-EU Icelandic government that might signal that them being in the European Union, they would just sort of become a new Hungary and just sort of sabotage a lot of things. And I think very likely, depending on what parties are in control in Iceland at each given time, again, statistically speaking, these are usually anti-EU parties, that they would just use the bully pulpit of the EU to sabotage whatever might what they assume would be negative for Iceland's economy, mainly our fishing industry and yada yada yada. So does the European Union really want another troublemaker? I don't know. Finally, I would like to mention what I believe is going to be a massive advantage that the saying no to the EU side is going to have in any sort of referendum. Now, I want you to imagine a spectrum. This thing that I am probably on without being diagnosed as such. But on this spectrum, you have all Icelandic voters. On one side, you have the hardcore no to the EU camp, so hardcore Marxists and hardcore nationalists. And on the absolute opposite side of this spectrum, you have the cosmopolitan, downtown Reykjavik, born and raised liberal elites. And then in the middle, you have a bunch of undecided voters. What argument do you think comes off as stronger if you are undecided? That Iceland is a natural part of and belongs to some greater European civilization? Or the existential threat to our sovereignty and way of life? Now, I don't fully agree with either of these analyses, but one of these two just hits harder, I've been wanting to make this video for a very long time, and I've been procrastinating this word. Ég er búinn að vera að fresta því week after week after week, and it looks like I am finally doing it. So let me know in the comments what you think of my analysis and whether or not you agree or disagree. And yeah, exciting times ahead, most definitely. And long-time subscribers, thank you all for your patience, for waiting for this video, because again, I don't upload nearly as frequently as I used to. Maybe someday. I don't know. Thank you for watching and like and subscribe. And now, for all of my long-term subscribers, here is a little bonus content. So, as you may or may not know, I currently work at a recycling plant. And as you can imagine, a lot of people don't know how to recycle, and we get all sorts of trash all the time that we are not supposed to deal with. Like, for example, this mouse. Yeah, a live mouse came on the conveyor the other day. There it is. Look at it. It's so cute. And here we are releasing it back into the wild. Isn't that nice?
Frelsinu fegin.
There are several hurdles. Okay. There are several hurdles. Hurdles. This is a difficult one. There are a few hurdles. Hurdle.
Ég vil biðja ykkur að minnast með mér fósturjarðarinnar. Lifi Ísland! Húrra!